All right, Brian, welcome to the studio. How you doing today?
Good. It's good to be back.
Just a quick second here. So, folks, this is Brian's second time here on the podcast with me. And today we're just going to talk about his graphic novel, Grid Wars. But for anyone that wants to learn all about Brian and his history and his past and how he got started, go back and you can check out podcast number 18. Wow, you were number 18.
Unbelievable. And hey, congratulations on this is just built this thing. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Just pull that mic in a little bit closer there. And yeah, it's been wild. All you got to do is just keep talking.
Yeah.
And actually, the thing that's been the kind of the most laborious is really just booking everyone because people have to change times. People have like life happens, right?
Yeah.
Especially the last couple of weeks with all the chaos in the Palisades and in Pasadena. But
Yeah.
no, it's been wonderful. Like
It's great.
to have a chance to talk to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I mean, that's what you've built here is amazing because you're just getting, people from the community and like real stories and all that. It's really, really terrific. So.
Thank you so much. So, okay, so we talked almost a year ago.
Yeah.
You were
Insane.
it is kind of insane. So much has happened.
So much has happened, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But so we were talking about you had this idea for a graphic novel, you were writing as well, and it you weren't at a position where there was anything that you could show
Right.
at that moment, but now you've got it.
Yes. Yes.
So what does that even look like? Like, what is it like? What does a graphic novel even look like?
Yeah. Okay. The Grid Wars is the graphic
Pull
novel.
that in a little bit
The
more.
Grid Wars is my graphic novel,
Right.
dystopian sci-fi, and a little bit about it. It's set in the year 2062. Half the nation is now in prison, locked behind 22 million miles of a wall. And basically, what happens in the Grid Wars is that they play this new game, the Grid Wars, which is brought to you by the National Penitentiary League. And players in the four divisions of our now 32 states, they play this very violent game of football where it's really anything goes, weapons, all that kind of stuff. And about half the players die in pursuit of the one thing, which is to play in the Grid Bowl. And the winner of the Grid Bowl, they get freedom. And so they actually get onto the island of Kodiak, which is 80 miles off the coast of Alaska. So that's the ultimate prize is freedom.
Wow.
And what happens in this is that the South loses, and they're called starbacks. They're kind of similar to quarterbacks. Their starback is decapitated, and now they need a new player. They don't have anybody that's going to lead them to the next championship. So they hear about this guy who's in the free zone down in New Orleans, and he's playing for the NFL, which is kind of like almost like the Harlem Globetrotters, but he's got a golden arm. So they want to recruit him, but the problem is he's a free man. So they need to find a way to make him unfree. And so they set him up for a crime he didn't commit, and they bring him into the NPL, and he's left with a choice: either rot here or play your way to freedom. So the question is, what would you do?
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not for young kids. It's intended for mature audiences, 18 and up. Um, my artist is one of the leading artists from Brazil. His name is Brau. He's just unbelievable. He's a true visionary.
Mhm.
It's been this incredible collaboration over a year. We would not have been able to do this 5 years ago because we Zoom every single week. We launched a Kickstarter. We hit our goal of $10,000, and that helped pay for actually a lot of stuff for him. So a lot of the art, and then for the printing and all that kind of stuff. And also with my company that I launched called Revenant Studios, the premise is big worlds, complex characters, and no superheroes. Um, Marvel and DC do the superheroes better than anybody. I don't need to be in that game. So these are sort of kind of grounded stories. We like very complex characters who are sort of, experiencing their own inner turmoil. But when appropriate, we do find ways to donate to nonprofits with themes that are similar to the work.
Mhm.
So on the Kickstarter, we donated $2,000 to Homeboy Industries, which is leading the charge in like kind of rehabilitating the formerly incarcerated. They're an amazing, amazing nonprofit. And so that was part of it. So it's not a mandate for anything, but it is something that we keep in mind.
Yeah, no, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So the kid with the golden arm who needs to have a crime pinned on him, was it like Brady's like great grandson?
Basically, yeah. He actually kinda looks like Tom Brady. He's got a little he was kind of an archetype for us, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. So it's basically he's basically Brady, an incredible arm, incredible leader and all that stuff, but he never wanted to be here, and now he's in a situation that's untenable, you know?
It sounds like a video game. I love this, I always like whenever I hear these stories about people who have to like play their way to freedom,
Yeah,
I'm always thinking of like a video game where,
yeah.
you start off at level 1 and you gotta get to level like 50 and then you're free, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's actually it's play for freedom. That's really what the idea is. So, it can totally be a video game.
Mm.
All of the above, is really what we're gonna hope for.
So let's go back just a little bit. So you've been writing
Yeah,
in Hollywood
yeah,
for decades,
yeah.
and
This is because I'm old.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. But you've decided now to like branch off into this graphic novel space, and you have done like some comic books in the past,
Yeah.
and this is your wheelhouse. But now you're kind of really going out and building your own IP, which is
Yes.
incredible.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. It is wild. I don't think it could have been done 5 years ago. It just couldn't have been done. Like,
Mm.
now all the tools are at our disposal, building audience, that kind of thing. Now we're in 9 comic book stores here in LA, building it out on a grassroots level. I've done like maybe 10 signings, and it just wouldn't happen, a while ago, but now there's much more, particularly because of things like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. There's a real sort of passion for kind of indie comic book and graphic novel and building your own and that sort of thing. And that's why it's been in a large part like one of the most creatively rewarding things I've ever done. And I highly encourage it to anybody else.
That's amazing. Cause so like people have told me like the benefits of Kickstarter is that you actually kind of really build a community around your project because
Yeah.
people invest and then they get some kind of gifts back or something like that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like an audience that's waiting for the next thing.
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of what's happening right now. So we're going on to our next Kickstarter. The script's written, the art's being done right now, and I've been building a list steadily to of people who've either bought it or are interested in buying this one, chapter one. And so now that's what we're gonna do for chapter two. It's the continuation of the story, set in New Orleans in the penitentiary, and kind of it's becomes our hero's decision to see the penitentiary that's there and whether or not he's going to go and play in this game.
Mhm.
And so there's going to be all kinds of new tech and all kinds of very atmospheric things is set, in the bayou, and so it's going to have like a real feel to it.
What does it feel like to build this world?
It's definitely the biggest thing that I've done. And it feels great because it's really it stretches like I have to really think about things. What would this look like in 30 years from now? Like what companies have lasted? Is Tesla still alive? Things like that.
Mhm.
So it's really you spend a lot of time thinking about even things like wardrobe, and that's where my artist is so amazing at. He really is incredible at going, okay, we're trying to have a new look, but not so new that it feels completely alien. And also, we want to have a throwback to what today is. So the question is, the NFL still does exist, but what does that look like now?
Mhm.
And what do their uniforms look like? in 35 years from now.
And then how are the prison guys altering their uniforms to look more badass?
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you could see that, like we've had you could see in his work that he did, uh there's a lot of thought that gets put into
There's
like
your camera share here.
that gets put into like uniform,
Yeah.
and the different looks that you have in order to really, pick upon a color scheme. What do the different divisions look like? How, there's a primary color, there's a secondary color. So it's just a lot of that kind of thought that goes into it.
So you've been working in the comic book genre for a while. You've
Yeah.
written for some of the major comic book brands as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So what does it feel like now to like go off and build your entirely own universe? Because I guess for a long time you were kind of hemmed in or boxed in by the parameters of
Right.
these famous
Right.
comic book stories that have existed for decades.
Right.
And
Yeah.
now and but what's that like between like because sorry, just remind me what you've written in the past for you did something with DC, I remember.
Yeah, and other stuff too, but not of the superhero titles, but really more of this sort of like kind of I guess you can call it more like sci-fi kind of that sort of area, So there, so to that end, um, it's not a huge difference in the sense that I'm like moving genres from superhero to this, which is really supposed to feel very grounded in reality.
Mhm.
Um, but but I'm the one that has to to create the rules.
Mhm.
The rules in working for other people are given to you.
Mhm.
And you could have some leeway. It's the same thing on a TV show. Like there's some leeway, but at the end of the day, you're serving the rules of the property that you're working on.
Right, because the existing IP was created already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So now you're setting your own rules.
so now I'm setting my own rules. And so it's either my mistake or it's either
The buck stops
the
with
buck
you.
stops with me, which is good and bad, So, but so far so good. The response has been very nice. I'm very happy with it, and it's the best thing is to meet with, to actually do signings and just go meet comic book fans.
Yeah,
That's really it, and they're very receptive to indie comic book makers. They really do like that feel to it.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
So, okay, so you're working in Hollywood, you're writing on TV shows, you're working in other kind of sci-fi genres.
yeah.
How long does it take you to get the nerve to go out on your own and build your own universe? Because there must be so many people listening to this podcast or people in this town
Yeah.
that are like, I want to write my own thing. I want to build my own thing. I want to create my own universe. But you just did it.
Well, for me, 30 years, but don't let anybody take that long. The tools are I came up with this idea back in 2004.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I never did anything with it.
Because you were so busy just
I was busy doing it, and then I had kids, and then so I never did anything. And then I thought about writing it as a novel, and then I'd sit down, and then I'd be like, "Oh god, this is a whole other ball game."
hmm
And then when I saw Brow's work, I was like, "I need that."
hmm
Um,
And how did you come across Brow, your Brazilian artist?
he had done a bunch of stuff for other titles that I liked, and I just started looking at it. And then I just reached out to him online, and he said, "Look, I'm on a job for another 3 months, but I really like this. If you're about to hire somebody, let me know because maybe I can move stuff around." And then I looked at a whole bunch of other ones that I didn't want to hire anybody else, and it was the best decision I ever made.
hmm
So to anybody who's doing it, you do have to take some risk. You have to take a little bit of financial risk, and you have to take some creative risk. But if you're willing to do that, I do think it's a great experience, but also for the right title. Like it should be able to live as a graphic novel or a comic book series. It shouldn't be forced into that, and that's
Walk me through that.
well, you know, I mean, to some end, there's so many different types of genres that comic book artists love. There's or comic book fans love now. I mean, it's much more advanced than when I was coming up. Now you've got like um, every group, gay and lesbian comic books. Like you've got all kinds of different things that weren't, stocked before, that are now being stocked. But if it's just like you know, you've got an idea for a family drama, maybe this isn't the best medium for it.
Modern Family and
It's
graphic novel.
it's very hard if it's, you don't have as much room for dialogue. The dialogue needs to be like really much more short and concise,
Mhm.
than you might have in a play or in a feature film or things like that. Um, so, ideally it would be best served in a genre that, people read: horror, sci-fi, that kind of thing. But, now it's starting to branch out. Like there's like westerns, there's, mafia, there's all kinds of stuff. So it just should have a market that, is very much like a fan of reading comic books and graphic novels.
So okay, to walk me back like 35 years. When you went to the comic shop, what were you looking for back in there? Because I was looking, my favorite comic books, I had like all the G.I. Joe ones. I
Ye
loved Punisher.
Yep.
Punisher was epic.
All Marvel, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Punisher, a lot of straight out a lot of like Batman, that
Mhm.
kind of things like that.
But it was all like there wasn't a lot of diversity. It just seemed like it was all kind of superhero-esque, like,
Yeah,
protagonist,
yeah,
villain, and that was it. Like there wasn't a lot of
yeah.
range.
Well, so Marvel and DC, they control a lot of the market. But then after between when I started out and then now, there's been all these kind of like they call them like the mini majors, like Image. Image is a creator-owned publishing house, and they do The Walking Dead.
Oh,
Uh,
that's huge, right?
so that's huge.
Yeah.
And so
Did that TV sorry to interrupt you. Did that TV series come out of a comic book or
yeah,
the other way around?
yeah, no, it came out of a comic book.
Really? They got like 150 episodes or whatever out of that
Yeah.
comic book?
Yeah, I mean, it was a series, so yeah,
Yeah.
it was a very well received, book,
Mhm.
a well received series, and so places like that, Dark Horse, Comics is another one. They did, like, The Mask and Hellboy and things like that. Boom Studios is another big one. So there's, like, about 8 to 10 that are sort of not as big as DC and Marvel, but they're big,
Mhm.
and they tend to take on more indie or like horror-y type, that kind of stuff that audiences really love. Um, and then after that, there's a whole bunch of smaller players that they're all doing their own thing. Um, there's like 3 distribution houses for that fill up every single comic book store in the country. Diamond was the big one, but now they're in Chapter 11, so they're working their way through it. And then there's Lunar and Penguin Books, and those 3 control most of what, you read out there.
Mm.
So
Isn't that crazy?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. So that's why it's like you've got the in-store, which really does still matter. But now you've got all these like Kickstarter communities, you've got TikTok, you've got I mean, unless TikTok goes down, but you've got a whole vibrant community on TikTok that are they love, comics and all that kind of stuff. Anything related to that, creators who are promoting. So there's just more, it's a bigger world now. It's like it's a wide open web, but there's more to it, avenues for creators to try to make a living off of it.
That's interesting, right? Because these are all tools and these are all networks of people you would have never been able to connect with like 20 years ago.
Never,
Yeah.
never.
And the printing and all that stuff must be much cheaper now than it was previously and much more accessible.
It is. It depends. It's still cheaper to print in China, and it's than it is in the United States. This was printed in the United States. This is printed out in like Philly or close to Philly. But it's still vastly cheaper to print overseas in China.
I did 2 photography books, I think, and both of them were printed in Singapore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I know it's crazy.
Mhm. And then shipped all around the world.
And then shipped all around the world. It's just bananas. So, but yeah, I mean, there's everything is like there's it's easier to make things. You just upload you upload the digital images, and they send you a digital proof. Do you approve of it or not? And then boom, you go off to print.
Mhm.
When I was starting out, you could never do that.
And so, like, how many so you needed to raise so for chapter 1, you raised $10,000
Yeah.
on Kickstarter. So how many micro investors did you have? And then what kinds of things did you offer them?
We had 80 investors, and we offered them all kinds of different things, um, special perks for people that bought in early.
Mhm.
We had a lot of bookmarks and calendars and posters and sort of those types of things that would go in. But they have these thing called stretch goals. So when you collectively get to your $10,000, that unlocks another thing, and that unlocked the $2,000 to Homeboy Industries.
Okay, that's
So
great.
so they're kind of all working, together on that front. But there's a million different things that you could do. So on this new one, we're gonna have, there's gonna be original art that you could buy, things like that. So it's gonna be kind of like part one, but on steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, the world of graphic novels is something that I'm not that familiar with, but it seems so free, like,
Yeah.
to be able to, you know, just create your own characters, build your own worlds, and then also lay the artwork on top of,
Yeah.
a great story,
Yeah.
and then put it out into the world. Like, it just seems like such a beautiful process.
It's a beautiful process. It's very creative, and at the end of the day, I own the IP.
Mm.
Versus working, as a hired gun, you don't really own anything. So, it's that was the reason to do it. It wasn't the reason. It wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go out and no one can predict if it's gonna be, the next Walking Dead or not.
Mm.
But it's like I'm gonna build the story out carefully, methodically, step by step, brick by brick, and it's an 8-part series and really kind of build up the world of it and the fan base, on a grassroots level, and that's what's happening, so I'm very happy.
So 8 chapters, you've done number 1, number 2 is coming, and what, like, number are you planning on trying to release 1 per year?
Hopefully, it will be even more,
Mm.
like 2 per year, is kind of I think, a realistic goal, and then so we probably get to, like, this year, chapter 2, to the next year, and then, probably 4 in the year after that.
Mhm.
That's kind of the sort of the goal.
Once you get into a real rhythm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get a fan base that is like, "Okay," right, and then I have all the rules have been set, so it goes quicker because you already have the characters drawn. You've got a lot of what you already need from doing the hard work in the beginning.
And I mean, like, I'm just throwing this out there, I could be totally wrong, but my guess is, like, a lot of people in the graphic novel world might not have as much television experience as you do, and I'm
That's
just
probably fair to say.
yeah, and I'm just wondering, like, when do you start pitching this 8-part series as a TV show or a movie or a video game and, like, expanding that IP and reaching a bigger audience?
Probably sometime this year.
Mhm.
The right now, because of the fires and everything, it's not
Fucked up, isn't it?
it's been really fucked up. It's not a great time.
And
Last year
I'm
was such
I'm sorry that you had family that had to be evacuated too, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really hard. But as I told you earlier, we lucked out. My mom's house did not go up in flames, so that was a big deal. But last year was hard because of the strikes, and so it was really feeling still the effects of the strikes. It was a slowdown, and then now the fire. So it's not right now. It's not an opportune time, but maybe in about 6 months, it might be a better time.
I think you were actually one of the people who coined the phrase last year to me, and I started repeating it all the time. You were saying, what was it like? Got to survive to 2025 or something. And then right away, 2025, we get the worst wildfires in U.S. history.
It was stay alive till 2025. Well,
Fucked up.
that was actually I we had we got a call from our manager January 2nd or 3rd, whatever. It was an email saying, "Hey guys, look, let's put 2024 behind us. It was awful for everybody. Let's get going. 2025. I'm going to make calls. We're going to get the lay of the land. Are people actually buying? Is it really, And then the fires literally happened the next day. So that is going to put that on hold. I think at some point they're going to have to get back to work. It's very hard when a lot of the people who, you know, are working at the studios, they lived over in the Palisades,
Yeah.
and so they're just completely uprooted. They're dealing with much bigger problems than reading my script.
It's you're right, because it's like how does a studio executive or someone like that who's just lost their home, how do they kind of determine what is an acceptable risk to take on a new project when
Right.
they're homeless and that they've been devastated by fire?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And their heads aren't into it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can understand that. It's like, all right, like maybe even they will read right now, but are they really going to be engaged? They've got much bigger fish to fry. So it's probably better just to wait, a while to let all life try to get back to some semblance of normalcy. And then we can talk about this with them at that point.
I've been waiting 5 years. I've only been on the mics for a year and a bit, but 5 years, like, because it's you're right, because like, think about global travel. Like, global travel really only came back in, like, late 2022, 2023,
Yeah.
and then people are still trying to figure out, like, what to spend on, what not to spend on, how to
Oh, wait.
promote, how to show,
Yeah.
tell stories.
No, I mean, if you think about it, we had COVID, we had, we had COVID, then we had massive social movement that changed a lot of the paradigm for everybody involved.
Mhm.
Then we had really crippling strikes that went on for a long time. And then, then we just had this fire. It's, with I'm sure locusts are coming next. So like that has to be what it is.
It feels slightly biblical at this stage. For a non-religious person, it feels very
It
biblical.
feels very biblical. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's wild though.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is. So to that, for any writers who are listening out there, it's like just go about your business and just keep doing, whether or not it's with Hollywood or it's on your own or whatever it is, just keep finding a way. And back to that earlier, I think, it might be if somebody wants to do this kind of thing, you hire an artist that you admire and you have them create some ideas and some sketches enough to get if you want to go pursue Kickstarter, and that can help you raise a little bit of money to finish. And then, you take that and then you kind of build, that's your building block, right?
Mhm.
And you just kind of move it in. Like I'm seeing it happen all over the place.
And I mean, can you imagine how hard it would be to get a graphic novel project like yours off the ground without a platform like Kickstarter?
It'd be very difficult. It's
Yeah.
very difficult. Yeah.
So there must be people just trolling Kickstarter looking for cool graphic novel projects.
They do. They have a very big database of people that are in the comic book and graphic novel world and games.
Mhm.
And by the way, board games, those are insanely popular.
I would have never imagined.
Neither would I. It's a huge category and people pay.
An 80 screen television and video games has to compete against board games?
Yeah, they love it. And things that you would never imagine, like, there's one board game called Botany, and I think it raised something like $300,000, something
Holy shit.
astronomical, and I think it's all about botany.
Wow, some
I
fans out there.
yeah. I've never played it, but, I backed one called Insania, which looks amazing. And Brow did a lot of the art for that, and that's why I backed it. But it's sort of set in ancient Rome, and there's like monsters and all. It just looks really cool. So when would that have happened?
Yeah.
Right? How would that game maker, who's an independent game maker, have that visibility if they're trying to compete with Mattel, and they like this is the outlet for indie people to go and explore.
Yeah, you would have like had to go to Mattel, pitch to them, then they'd own your project, and then you'd be just the project manager with zero ownership, and then you just ride it through.
And then you just ride through, and then it will take you 2 years to get through, the legal and this and that, and by the time you're done, you could have built the whole thing.
Hmm.
So that's what they did, and it looks insane. It looks really, really cool.
That's wild. So Kickstarter is really the place to build this online community if you do have like a graphic novel or a game project.
Yeah, Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Hmm.
Those are really the place. Kickstarter for there's a lot of tools that they have. I haven't really much used Indiegogo, but I'm sure it's the same. There's just a lot of tools, like creator tools. They have collaborative tools, where you could actually collaborate with another Kickstarter, so that you're reaching both your audiences.
Hmm.
So there's just a lot of shared kindred spirit to it.
That's nice because
Yeah.
like I feel like that's always something that's hard to find.
It is hard to find.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's reflective of the community. Like when I go in, I do signings, like people they're oddly supportive. They go, "Oh, what's going on over here?" Yeah, I like to support, new things. They may have come in from Marvel, but they want to support new artists and new creators.
And where do you go for these signings? Like, where do you go to like learn and talk to artists and creators like face to face in the comic book world?
Yeah, I go. I mean, we're here in LA. Like Golden Apple was where we launched. That's on Melrose, right near La Brea. That's sort of a very well-known, kind of influential comic book. That was how we launched in store. But now I've done it at a number of other places, Comic Bug, both here in Culver City and then in Manhattan Beach, and then some other ones too. And so I'm just, doing more and more of these as I go on.
It almost sounds like there's more comic book stores in LA than actual bookstores.
Probably.
More loyal audiences, right?
Yeah, because no one reads in LA, so it's just easier to read, 29 pages, No, but it's funny to watch and you go in and there's like really they're engaged, they want to talk about story, they want to talk about character, they really, really get deep into it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's not all kids, it's people our age.
yeah.
A lot.
People who have kind of been through the comic book realm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're writing for television
Yeah.
in Hollywood. You've been here for years,
Yeah.
and you've had this great career. So now, what does it take for you to like turn that all upside down and start writing a graphic novel? Like, how does the writing change for you based on like
Yeah.
a comic book television show or just a regular like rom com?
Yeah. Uh
Because I would assume, as a I'm completely naive to this topic, but I would assume the writing is totally different.
so probably if I was smarter, it would be I would have done it, uh, like, I would have tried to do it in a very typical comic book format, and but it depends on who you're collaborating with. When I wrote this like I write scripts, um, with more detail in the description than I normally would, and shorter dialogue than I tend to write kind of short dialogue anyways, but like, there's only so much room you have in the actual little uh dialogue places on a comic book. So if you have there's no giant monologues, it's just not going to work. Um but a lot of comic book writers, they really frame by frame this. I gave Brow, who's so good, leeway. I'm like, well, I'll give you an example.
'Cause it is, like, curious, like, what does the writing look like that you give him? Like, is it
Right.
is it like a screenplay where he's building out, like, a scene by scene, or is it
Yeah, it was a 20-page screenplay that I gave him.
That's wild.
Yeah, so the question is, like, for things like this,
This up here.
if you look at this character and you look at the close-up on the eyes right there,
Yep.
I did not write close on eyes. Like,
Okay.
Brow came up with that and said, "This is where we need a close-up on her eyes."
Right.
Some writers will
Oh,
do that. They will really map it out to the place where it's like, okay, frame by frame.
Hmm.
But I wanted to, this being my first go around, I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick from your expertise here. And it worked really, really well.
So that marriage between artist and writer is like crucial.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it's great that you found Brow. I mean, he seems like he's like
Yeah.
really experienced and was able to take your vision and turn and enhance it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He definitely made it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 100%.
I think that's the key to having like a good partner, right? It's like
Yeah.
they have to make what you put out into the world. They have to enhance it in some way, per shape, or if they're dragging it down, you got the wrong person.
Yeah. No, I know. I lucked out. It could have gone south. It could have been very difficult, and it could have been like, you don't see eye to eye, but we really saw eye to eye on really just about everything,
Hmm.
and he also did things that, he came up with ideas that I didn't write. So I'll give you an example. So this is where the grid wars are played.
Okay.
And if you see that, that's the Colosseum. That's inside the Grand Canyon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And
So
the Grand Canyon looks like it's pretty full of water.
yeah.
Hmm.
So he came when I originally wrote it. My idea was to have it I got it from this inspiration from the something called Skywalk, I think is what it's called.
Hmm.
It's basically at the top of the Grand Canyon. Um, and it's this kind of translucent skywalk.
I've been there. Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Okay. So you see what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's like a semicircle that goes out over the canyon and
Yeah.
comes back, and it's all glass, and you look down and you can see how far it is to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was my inspiration. I said, well, let's build a stadium that, goes and extends out from the Grand Canyon. And then he came back and he said, no, let's try to build it inside the Grand Canyon in the water. Cause then we can have things like, like boats kind of pull up to it, yachts pull up to it. And it worked. His idea was better.
Hmm.
And I was like, let's do it. Let's go with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the other things that you would want to tack on to chapter one here, if you could? Like, you know, I mean, obviously doing podcasts about it and sharing like your vision behind it is pretty interesting. Like,
Yeah.
have you ever thought about doing like a page by page like director's cut where you're or writer's cut where you're talking about like
Yeah.
how each kind of scene came to be?
Yeah. Eventually I think probably when we get to the end of this, that will be like the added into, all of it,
Hmm.
right? Like, okay, how do we go here? How do we do here? Like kind of a play by play,
And like, and almost like, I mean, this is aging me too, but like, it's almost like finding the bonus material on an old Blu-ray, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
which don't exist anymore. But like, that would be so wonderful to hear like your vision of each page.
Yeah. 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 That's definitely going to be part of it. And, on the Kickstarter, like when people do it, there are going to be certain tiers where if you put in X amount, then we'll name a character after you and things like that. So there's a lot more fan involvement
Mhm.
than you would. They're helping create the story as you go on.
Right.
So
How'd you come up with all those like cool ways to get people's attention on Kickstarter? Like, did you just research all the other projects and then kind of take best practices?
yeah, and I think we did well. The creative we did well. We didn't market it, until the day of the Kickstarter. That's one thing I learned from the last Kickstarter. You need to market it before. You need to start building things out before, so when the actual Kickstarter is in, you've already got people that are interested in,
Hmm.
you know? So, the initial run was, like, friends and family and then other fans that we met along the way. Um Brad would post on his Instagram pretty consistently. And then through that, I would hear other people that were like, oh, yeah, I know his work. And so it kind of helped out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good having a artist that is well known that can also help you with some marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and he does his own Kickstarters too. He has a very loyal following. This one was actually outside his typical scope of what he's known for. He's actually known for very racy, eyes wide shut type of erotica.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw it, I was like, there's not going to be any nudity in this, but that sort of kind of punk rock spirit was what I was looking for.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So is Brazil like a well-known place to find, graphic artists?
In Argentina, you just find they're so talented down there.
Where does that come from?
I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there can be talented artists anywhere,
Yeah.
but I'm just curious, like, what made South America some kind of hotbed?
It is. It's just it's maybe it's also partly cultural, like, it's big, it's like there's, like, gusto, there's just
Machoism?
a lot of machoism, um, and the women are drawn in a way that are very, like, they're very feminine, and the men are drawn in a way that are very masculine, and so there's a very it fits to the comic the 13-year-old boy fan base very, very well,
Mhm.
Having said that, there's also a lot of really, like, deep thinking that goes down there, the level of detail, the social issues they're talking about, there's also, a lot of sort of very heady types of things that you find down there, and they're also doing covers for all the major DCs, all that like, they work on that stuff, so it's just a hotbed of talent.
There's just a whole ecosystem down there.
I've never seen anything like it.
Mhm.
It's crazy. I'm trying to think about what would be like that in the United States, and I can't think of anything.
That's amazing though, and it works because you guys are kinda almost in the same time zone, so you're not, like, trying to deal with people, like, in Asia, like, halfway around the world in Korea or Japan or China or
Yeah.
yeah.
No, we at 10 o'clock, we get on a Zoom, boom. We have an hour together and it works perfectly.
Mhm.
And he's doing great. He's doing amazing stuff. A lot of different covers for big projects. So I'm like really happy because he's really just very engaged and just really building everything out.
Mhm.
He's amazing guy. He loves heavy metal. So we have a shared interest in bands like Megadeth and things like that. So there's a lot to talk about.
That's wild. Are you gonna have, like, a live band playing on the side of the football field, like, straight out of, Mad Max or something?
Well, there is actually okay,
Some crazy guitar guy with, like,
yeah,
flaming
okay,
guitars?
so if you look at this is this is if you see that orb, that's the floating orb that's there.
Mhm.
Um, if you see the top, those are the 4 wardens. So those are the ones that basically run the country.
Mhm.
Um, they run the grid wars. The level below that is where the band plays.
Oh, I can see the band guys, yeah, they're just right here, that's kinda cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see the band members.
Yeah, they're all there. And you can see the drones, they get picked up, they pick up the body parts.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
It's very violent. It's very violent, I'll say that.
It's like Squid Games on steroids.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, it's in that if you're a fan of Squid Games, this is something for you.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
it's
gonna be Mr. Beast's next TV show.
pretty much.
That's amazing. So you sent me some art, so maybe we
Yeah,
can just pop this out
yeah, let's take a
and
look.
have just a quick look here. So there's one of our things to look at. So what are we looking at here?
So this is you're looking at the cover of chapter 1. And obviously this is the Starback who is, on the field where there's a lot of body parts all over the place. You can see what he's got in his hands. He's got basically a club slash cleaver. And, that sort of sets the tone. I really love what Brow did there because it's kind of mysterious. You don't know what it is. You see a goalpost off in the distance. So what you're looking at is the front page and the back page.
Mhm.
And you can see my logo for the Revenant Studios on the back page. And then the Grid Wars, that's the logo on the front page.
And it just says here, play for freedom.
Yeah.
In the year 2062, half of the United States population is now in prison, locked up behind an impenetrable wall to pay for our country's mass incarnation. The National Penitentiary League launched a new blood sport that has swept the nation, the grid wars. Many who dare play will die, but the fierce few who win are granted one prize coveted by all those who live behind the wall, liberty. Because if you are the unlucky ones to live behind the wall, there's only one way out. Play for your freedom.
Yeah. That was good.
That sounds fucking cool.
Yeah, man. All right, come on. It's got everything. It's got blood. It's got guns. It's got a lot of action to it.
Yeah. So I guess like chapter one is just kind of like setting the rules of the world, right?
Yeah.
And then as we move through the various chapters, is going to take us through this Golden Boy's journey.
Journey, right. And chapter 2 is him getting familiar with what prison really looks like and making the ultimate decision. Will I play or will I not play?
Hmm.
So that's the second chapter. And then, as you said, yeah, it will go on. There's going to be surprises along the way, a lot of twists and turns.
And you've already got all that mapped out.
I've got all that mapped out. Not every single chapter, but I know where it's going, and I've got the big sort of ideas. Um,
How wild is it that you get to like lay out 8 chapters of this world? I mean,
yeah,
it must be more in depth than any TV show you've ever worked on.
it has to be.
Hmm.
It has to be because it's set, um, because of where it's set and how it's set. I have to think about things that I wouldn't necessarily think about before. Like what kind of asphalt is now in the future to be able to handle the cars that are bigger, things like that you need to kind of go through. Not every single thing, but a lot.
And is that stuff that you have to drop hints of these kinds of like
Yeah.
modern technologies and things like that? You drop those into the comic book?
Yes, yeah. And there's also some Easter eggs that are dropped in that will play out as it goes on, that if you're paying attention, that they are important.
Mhm.
A lot of technology, but it's also very grounded in reality. And there's a nod to the old school here in this. So it shouldn't feel unfamiliar. It shouldn't feel like, oh, I've never seen what that looks like before. In the sense that like this is a completely different alien invention. It should look like things you've seen, but also done in a completely different way,
Mhm.
but there should be some semblance of what you see in that.
Did you ever remember a movie which was also a comic book, I think, with Stallone called Judge Dredd?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it's got echoes of that.
Yeah, because I was thinking like, didn't they have to have like competitions against Judge Dredd, and if you
Yeah,
die, you're guilty?
yeah, it's got echoes of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something here in this called the Mobile Justice Unit, and basically, when a crime is committed, a drone comes down, and these sort of translucent heads, like in Superman, appear, and they can statistically determine your level of guilt right on the spot. So that happens here. The Mobile Justice Unit comes down, but it's rigged, and so they say you're guilty, and then he's hauled off right there.
No jury of your peers.
Yeah, that's it.
No due diligence.
No due
Yeah.
diligence.
No, yeah, that's kind of creepy. But that could be a future that we're all heading towards, right?
Well, that's just sort of the thing is that,
I mean, how dark is your vision of the future to come out with a graphic novel like this, or is it just?
yeah, it's sort of like, what's the price of democracy that we're willing to pay? Democracy is messy.
Mhm.
You have to tolerate a lot of things. What would a world look like if you had no crime and, all of that was living behind the wall and you didn't necessarily see it, is that a price you're willing to pay for that? And so for the people in the free zone, they live a pretty good life. They're still technically a democracy, but it's a much different form of it, because a lot of their problems are miraculously gone. And I think we face that here today in anything with the homeless, with crime and all that stuff. People wrestle with that sort of like, how much of this can I be uncomfortable with? And how much of this is, do I want to just say, somebody just deal with it?
Mhm.
Right. And that's what I think we're facing that in a country right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest fear is, you know, we all want to be safe and we all want to live in a nice, clean
Right.
existence, but it's all about what's the cost of that and
Right.
who gets to make those decisions, right?
That's exactly what this is about.
Yeah,
That's exactly what this is about.
because the people running the show these days might not be
Right.
very What's the word we're looking for?
as 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 I wouldn't say gentle, but kind of
Benevolent,
prevalent.
not just in it for their own rise or their own wealth creation. Yeah. Well, that's wild. This is exciting. So I've got a little teaser here. I've got the title
Yeah.
page for chapter 2. Do you want to look at that?
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
look at it.
Let's look at that here. Bang.
There's chapter 2.
Wow.
Yeah, I love this one. I love this one. Um, Done by Brow again and with Roger Cruz, who's also from Brazil and is also one of the most talented artists that I could possibly see.
Hmm.
This was, that has, uh, I just love the way his like one leg is bent, it's like he's jumping down onto all these people about to basically, deliver the hammer on them.
Hmm.
So that one's a big thing for me. If you look at the ball, you see some light coming from it. The ball actually changes depending on who's touching it. So the color of it changes, like because each team has its own color. So if somebody's, on the black team with blue, the ball will take that shape,
Hmm.
but it's almost like a translucent ball that, people can see and know who's actually in possession of it at all times.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's a hell of a cover, man. It looks really attractive. It definitely pulls you in. It's like, what the hell's going on
Yeah,
there?
what is this?
That's epic.
And you can see I think that's part like is he's got very superhero-y type muscles. Like I don't have those muscles.
No.
But like that's sort of another thing I think they in South America that they're really good at is shade, is tone, is kind of depth, that kind of thing.
Just make all men look like Chris Hemsworth. That
Except for me.
say the artist and the creator gets no love.
Yeah, well, that's right. We got nothing. We got nothing.
So do you want to go through and look at a few more,
Yeah,
or
let's take a
what?
look at some slides.
Yeah, hold on one sec here. Let me get this out of the way and just pull this up into our full page. I'm back here.
There you go.
All right. So
Okay.
what are we looking at here?
So this is chapter 1. This is the story behind it. So when I spoke about the wall, right? The wall, if you look on the left side of the wall, this is Detroit. So this is where they are on the left side where they're actually in prison.
Let me see if I can just
You can blow that up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without distorting it.
Yeah. You could see that the wall is massive in size. You could actually drive on top of it. Um, it also bends,
Mhm.
okay? Because it's made out of this polymer called regenerative titanium. And so the idea behind it is how did we get so much wall so quickly? Well, there was an inventor named Takashi who actually created this kind of polymer that actually could move based on you programming it. So he codes and wall is built.
So that's essentially like programmable concrete.
Basically, yeah, but it's even stronger because it's titanium. And that was based off of the idea was drawn out of something called the Line in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you've seen this yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there.
The Line.
Yeah.
What was that like? That must have been crazy.
So in 2020, I did a driving trip all around Saudi Arabia because I was actually location scouting. I was supposed to do a bunch of adventure shows there, and so I was there January 2020 when they were building the line, which is in Neom, which is in this northwestern part of Saudi Arabia, also right along the border with Jordan. Beautiful mountainous area, and yeah, so the construction was kind of just getting started when I was there in 2020, but now obviously it's gone on a lot,
A little bit
a
south,
lot
yeah.
more. But it looks amazing.
It looks amazing. So that was my idea. Like the line wasn't my idea, but like it was my idea to when I looked at this, I was like, oh my God, this is kind of the sort of the visual that I'm going for. It should feel because the line just cuts right through the desert. It feels beautiful but jarring.
Hmm.
It's like in the middle of this, like there's sand everywhere, but it's like here's this futuristic thing. So that's what I was thinking about when creating the wall was that it really literally cuts through every city. So here in LA, Pacoima might be part of the prison system, but Beverly Hills will be the free zone, you
Hmm.
know? And that's how it grows all across the country. It's like arteries, it's cutting cities in half.
And this concrete that kind of is a living organism grows on its own.
Yeah, well, with you programming it,
Hmm.
and there's all kinds of benefits to the wall, that, now they have like live work spaces in the wall. So you could actually create like $80 million mansions, that grow out of the wall that have prime views of the grid bowl and things like that. So the wall is a living organism.
Hmm.
Um,
And you came up with that whole idea.
yeah, that was mine.
Because it's crazy, like, when you think about having a free zone and a prison zone,
Yeah,
and you're thinking of, like, how to fence them off and how to build a wall around them, and
right.
you come up with this idea of, like, this organic,
This organic
programmable wall that can move it at a keystroke.
at a keystroke. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Takashi's character is very enigmatic. No one really knows where he is. No, by design. He's the richest man in the world now because of what he's created. And he's sort of like a kind of like a godlike figure. But he's got other ideas. He's a true eccentric weirdo genius. So
Does he have some elevated status in society because he built this wall other than just being massively wealthy?
yeah, he's almost like, in a way, he's almost like the father to like, he has fans, but no one's ever seen him, he's a very mysterious, but not only does he have fans, but there's also a whole group of people behind the walls that are trying to figure out how do we break this wall.
Mhm.
So
Kinda like Bitcoin, like Satoshi Nakamoto.
right, basically, I mean, yeah, kind of if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of people that spend time on trying to find his original coding and his any kind of clue as to how could this wall be broken, and that's something that the four wardens really keep under wraps. They like try to prevent that from happening.
So you got a real cybersecurity angle on it as well.
Yes.
Who are the best hackers in the world? Alright, let's pop back in here. So
Right.
what do we got next?
Okay, so yeah, there's the wall. There's obviously the football behind it is very violent. Anything goes. Don't argue with the ref because you'll get shot.
Mhm.
There as I mentioned, about half the players die in each game. So there's a constant need for more players. So what this does is you do want to go big, or you go home. So that's why that's why there's only 32 states now. So South Dakota and North Dakota are now just the Dakotas because they need to be bigger. There's not a lot of people there to begin with, so now they need to like double the size.
And that's behind the wall, part of the prison colony.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's and in each state, there's they have their own sort of leagues because you play each other in the state first, and then you start playing other states and that kind of and the winner of the division ends up, going to they go to the final four and then those two they go to the grid bowl.
Mhm.
Um
The grid ball.
yeah. Yeah, it's fun.
Uh, the details you had to come up with are amazing.
They're insane. It is a lot of detail. So, um, what one of the prizes for the team of the decade is that you get actually first round bidding on buying Venezuela's prisoners. Like right now, Trump is trying to get rid of all the gangs and all that kind of stuff and send them back to Venezuela. In this world, we actually want them because then they can play in the grid wars.
They're cannon fodder.
They're cannon fodder. So
As a side note, it's amazing how many countries in Central and South America do not want their people back.
yes, I've noticed that too. I have noticed that.
Isn't that funny? Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, by the way, we're gonna start repatriating people to your country," and they're like, "No." How is that even a thing?
I don't know, man. We're in very, very unique times. You just gotta strap in and see where we go.
Who wrote this shit 30 years ago?
That's what I want to know.
bizarro land.
Yeah, the Simpsons did a thing where I think they said something like Trump was president. They predicted this.
Yeah, they
You know?
did, I think.
Yeah, they did. I think so. Anyways, but so we're in a lot of very you strap in, see where it's gonna go, because who knows where it's gonna go. I
Yeah.
don't know. You know.
So in your graphic novel, if you win, like if you finish last or something and you have first round draft pick, you get first access to Venezuela's prisoners.
So they're prisoners, right?
Just because they're a country that probably has a lot of prisoners.
They have a lot of prisoners.
Wow.
So yeah. So it's kind of hard, I try to flip it on its head, it's like, okay, well, we don't want them now, but when there's money to be made, we definitely want them to come back,
Yeah.
and that's what it's all about.
And these games are like televised, like yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole like they're basically the NFL for prisoners.
Basically. Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah.
Huge. It's the prison system now is the most financially lucrative system that the NPL is, and the games are just like, it's a massive moneymaker. Hawaii is now owned by the four wardens. So they bet like islands, oh, I'll bet you Maui if I win this game, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So it's a massive moneymaker. The Ivy League colleges are still there, and they teach classes on prison marketing, how to be a good, to be a deputy warden, so it's a real prestigious thing to be part of the United States penitentiary complex.
That's crazy.
It's like a great job,
Yeah.
and so
The opposite of today.
opposite of today. This is what you want. This
Yeah.
is like, you want to rise up the level to become as high up in those ranks,
How batshit crazy would our economy have to go in 2025 for 30 years from now to have like the biggest leading GDP generator to be like grid games?
right. It could happen.
I'm anything could happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Like, hopefully it doesn't, man. But
I don't want to see this come true.
I don't want to see this come true, but maybe it will. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, let's go back. I got a couple more graphics here to show you. So we got this one here. What's going on here?
Okay. So this is Kodiak, 80 miles off the coast of Alaska. And the winners of the Grid Bowl get to go to the island of Kodiak and live out their days in freedom with their loved ones, if their families, if they haven't been arrested, or even if a husband and a wife have been arrested, the deal is they get sent to Kodiak. And even though it's kind of an isolated island, they're free to roam. They're free to do what they want. They've got much better housing. It's like a good life there. Um, there's fishing and hiking and kayaking and all these incredible things that you could do in Kodiak that you don't normally get to do, obviously, in prison. One of the things in prison is you have to wear a neck brace that, if you try to escape, could explode at any moment. So they are free men and women on Kodiak.
And is there some kind of like crazy global warming that makes Kodiak a really nice place in the wintertime?
It's probably
Because I'm just curious because it's like prison or Alaska in January.
right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of new technology that combats that. So for instance, like if you look at this picture, you can now build islands on top of volcanoes,
Oh, he's snowboarding in that one.
and he's snowboarding in that one.
Yeah, just here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of new technology that, like, yes, it's cold out there in the winter, but you have a lot better life than you would back in prison.
Yeah. And people aren't trying to kill you every day.
Right.
Yeah.
That is also helpful.
So just to confirm, is it the winning team that gets to be free or is it like just a few players?
No, it's anybody who's left surviving on the winning team.
Wow.
Yeah. If you've got 100 players that are left, those 100 are going. Yeah, and their families. But if you only got 50 left, then 50 are going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very Hunger Game style.
Very Hunger Games. Yeah. It actually, that's a big influence for me.
Yeah.
It's not as the Hunger Games has, I think, when you go to the Citadel, the people are in costumes that were so much more futuristic than mine are.
Hmm.
and I love what they did, you know.
It was very elevated.
It was even more elevated.
Mm.
This is not as like, you're not gonna see a dress that necessarily can light on fire and all that kind of stuff. But it also does, like, with evening gowns look different. You
Mm.
know, they look much more, um, I guess you use the word dystopian, but they're dramatic, but they're not, you won't, as I said, you won't see, like, fire that can come out of them and do that kind of thing.
Mm, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. All right, here we got a couple more photos in here.
Okay, cool.
What do we got here?
Okay, so there is Austin, our hero, and his girlfriend, Camilla, who he's deeply in love with. Austin is a young man who's got a golden arm, a big future ahead of him. He's going to be the first one that he's about to go to college. And he plays in, they're called the pro leagues, you know, but, you know, like maybe 450 people go and see a game, you know, so he'll basically gets paid $1 an attendee, you know, and, he's in love with his girlfriend. He's got everything going. He's about to go to college. He's got the woman he loves. And then something happens to make him not free anymore. And I won't say what, but it's very important. It sets the tone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the kicker. I like it. So you got this kid who's got his whole life ahead of him, and then he ends up in jail.
And he ends up in jail. And you're going to find out more about him and his family and his father. His father was played in the grid wars too. So he's naturally hates the grid wars as it is. This is like the worst idea for him. You know, this is what he never wanted ever. No one would want this, but he in particular.
Yeah. Are there coaches in the Grid Wars?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the relationships between the players and the coaches like? I mean, just I mean, like, are they supportive? Like, hey guys, you're gonna get to Kodiak. Like, we're gonna all work together to get to. Or is it just like, I hate all of you, you hate all of me. Don't die.
Yeah, there is a little bit of like, just don't die on me,
Hmm.
you know, because the coaches are actually, they're not prisoners. They're free people who coach.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so they actually have a lot of, you know, that's a prestigious job, right? It's not, it would be prestigious in the NFL, but now it's even more prestigious in the NPL. So
Because the league is bigger and there's more money involved.
there's more money involved. They get paid they get paid now in the NFL very well too, but they get paid a lot of money. So it's basically just don't die on me, you know, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And but there are relationships that get built out that are, you know, think of it this way in a way. Remember in Gladiator with Russell Crowe and that the guy who had all the gladiators?
Yes, that was beautiful.
That's a little bit like that. He was a free man, but he also, there's a sort of unnatural, or there's a natural tension between these two, but there's also a respect between them.
Yeah, because the gladiator that owned Russell Crowe's gladiator character, he won his freedom and was given his freedom by
Right.
Marcus Aurelius. And then Russell Crowe's like, bullshit, you know, Marcus Aurelius. Like, we were best buddies.
Yeah, yeah, it's got a bit of that, right?
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah, so they're, in some ways they could be father figures, and other ways they're bad father figures. So, you know, it just depends on the coach.
As it does normally. Okay, so let's get back into this. So we got a few more graphics here. So we've seen that.
Yeah.
That's your chapter 2 graphic.
Chapter 2. This is our landing page for, you know, for our new Kickstarter.
Hmm.
And basically what happens is that as you go through it, if you sign up and you, for $1 you get part of the VIP club.
Hmm.
And by being in the VIP club, you get a lot of perks and discounts and things like that.
Sure.
So that's what we're doing right now. We're signing people up, to come on board. And then, based on that, then, you know, they'll all, once the Kickstarter goes live, which is going to be in the next 2-3 months, then they will notify all the VIPs and say, okay, here we go. Now we're up, you know?
And here's another vision of that wall that you were talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. So you can see you see the free zone on Detroit. It looks beautiful. He did I mean, it looks like the kind of place you might want to live.
Except you mentioned Detroit in there somewhere.
Right.
Nothing against the people from Detroit. Come on, I'm just making a very broad and old stereotype.
It's all right. It's okay.
All right, let's get back. So we got that, and then we got
Yeah, there's Austin as he basically realizes his life is about to change.
you know,
So,
there's an alligator in there.
yeah, so if you look at the Warden of the South, he's got a pet alligator and a pet panther. And they're kind of his he uses them in very interesting ways.
Mhm.
But he's a real badass. He's the Duke. But as you go through a lot of these characters, kind of like in Game of Thrones, you sort of find other things about them that you go, "Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe that's why he is the way he is," you know?
Yeah, you build out the characters, you find the humanity in them. Yeah, everyone has a backstory.
Everybody has a backstory,
Yeah.
and you get to know as the series goes on, we're gonna know, okay, how did this thing get built and why? Like, who came up with the idea? What happened? And how did it all of a sudden start to steamroll into where we begin now?
You know, there's a great show on Apple these days, called Silo,
I haven't watched it.
and, I've really been enjoying it because like, season 1 lays out, like, the rules of the silo, so it's basically, like, 10,000 people living in basically a 100-story tube, and and
Wow.
you know, they have their own farm, they have their own livestock, they have their own medical division. They have people who take care of the machines and the generators for the electricity and the fresh air. And then they have a whole hierarchy of people who live in the silo. And the whole first season is just people learning how to live in the silo.
Right.
And then the second season, people start asking, like, how the fuck did we get in the silo? Like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
who's really in charge? And I feel like
It's wild.
and then you start pulling back the layers on all the leaders and all the characters about why they're here and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. So the story narrative, it's something we're quite common with, but it pulls you in so beautifully.
That's I want you're gonna reveal it as it goes on.
Yeah.
You know, like so you start with little bits and pieces. I drop you into the world. And then as it goes on, you start to see, okay, how did this actually happen? And are there any characters that regret it?
Mhm.
You know, that their involvement with it, you know?
Do you think you could have created a story this complex like 25 years ago when you like first came out here trying to like make a living?
Uh no.
Yeah, it takes a lot of experience, doesn't it?
It takes I mean, I'm sure there were writers who could have, you know, but I wasn't one of them. And I think it just takes a lot of, you know, writing and failing and flailing around and then trying to find out what works and what doesn't, and then maybe thinking about things a little bit deeper, you know. And that's I think as I get older, that's what happens.
Do you have a few good friends around you who are also writers that you bounce ideas off of? Or are you doing this totally in a bubble?
There are. I do have some people that I do bounce stuff off of just to see, you know, okay, is this landing and that kind of stuff. And some of them have been very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Like that have turned my head and go, oh yeah, okay, that's a good idea. Right. I'm gonna do that, you know, and that's invaluable.
Yeah. That's epic. Okay, we got a few more graphics here. I love this one of the stadium we're going to look at.
Yeah.
Let's cut into that.
Okay. So there is the grid bowl. Uh as as I mentioned earlier, it's inside the Grand Canyon. And so, you know, a lot of those things, like I didn't, this is where Brow is so exceptional. Notice the way they get down to that, you know.
On that highway.
Yeah, there's two different ways to get down. One's on the highway, but then one is above. You see that that's sort of the monorail
Hmm.
that's attached to the wall. That was his.
Yeah.
That was insane. I
That's
never
epic.
and then you've got the ladders or they're really more like walkways, you know, that comes down into the grid bowl. Um, I guess you could almost look at this as like it's a tailgating party, but for yachts. You know, the super wealthy go. So, you know, that was
I love the yachts down at the bottom.
yes,
It's like it's Monaco F1.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's just bananas. So and there's a, you know, that was we did one already, this chapter one.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, that's
Show that chapter 1. Yeah.
yeah.
It's amazing. So this is all on your
Yeah.
revenantstudios.com. Get Revenant
Yeah.
Studios.
The landing page for this is get.revenant/studios.com.
Yeah.
And then my website is www.revenant-studios.com.
Yeah, we'll throw all that
love
in the
that.
bio when it goes out.
Good. Good. I love it.
So when is the next incarnation of when's chapter 2 coming? Like what's
This
the
year.
hope?
This year.
Yeah.
It will be depending upon how fast we get it all done, I'd say Q3.
And like how long does it take to go from you sending that 20-page script to Brow and
Yeah.
having him put the art together? How long does it take like for you to finish your job
Right.
and then to go back and forth with him and then have a physical copy in your hand like this right now? Like, what's that timeline?
That was a year.
Yeah.
But now it goes quicker because, we've got all the characters, the main characters already. We know what the visual palette is. We know like a lot of the things that we were talking about. Now we have a shorthand on.
Mhm.
Um, the also, a lot of it is based on like he starts with sketching and he starts with penciling, then it goes to ink. And we did a lot of like, okay, do you like this? Do you like this? Now it's sort of like, yeah, I already love what you do. Like basically, I don't need to micro, everything, I just he has a lot of leeway and that makes things go quicker.
I bet, yeah, when he doesn't have to, like, run every single
Yeah.
decision past you.
Yeah. So that's good. We now have the printing places picked out. We know we know the process of this. We're down with it. Like we get it.
How long does it take before you, like, send everything into print and then can hold a copy in your hand or get the copy into the distributors and into the shops?
Well, the printing takes anywhere between 6 weeks to 12 weeks. In China, it takes 12 weeks, unless you expedite everything, and then it's more expensive. So it's just that will be a question of how fast do I get it to for the Kickstarter people who kicked in,
Mhm.
right? If we're on time, then it could be 12 weeks. If we're not on time, then I'm going to expedite everything and just move it quicker. Yeah.
And what is the I mean, what is the, like, what's the print run on these things? Like, how many
It
copies are you
it
doing?
depends. It depends. With this one, we did a small print run of 500, and now maybe we'll do 1,000, 2,000 on the next one. And so it really depends on engagement. Like you want to be able to deliver to everybody. So we'll see.
Mm.
I anticipate it will be about 1,000 to 2,000.
And will you reprint chapter 1 at the same time as you print chapter
Yeah,
2? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's great. Like doing 8 chapters like that or 8 seasons like that, like,
yeah.
it's so smart because if someone buys in at chapter 7, they're gonna go back and get the first
It has to
6.
go back in.
Yeah.
And the other thing for the Kickstarter, if you come in as a VIP, you get discounts on chapter one. So
Right, that makes good, yeah.
so you get bundles and you get discounts. So it really is like incentivizing you to read from the beginning and then chapter two
And you came up with all this?
somehow.
You know what? I feel like the managing Kickstarter and managing the appetites of all of the investors or fans that wanna contribute or be a part of this universe, I just feel like that is even more daunting than putting, like, pen to paper and doing the writing.
The marketing,
Yeah,
the testimonial videos, the all the like every little detail is even more. You're right, is more daunting than the actual thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not, like, 21 and you didn't grow up with the internet since you were 6.
No, I'm like now I'm trying to figure out TikTok, and I don't even know if it's going to still be here. But like I've just uploaded a shop, and now I'm like picking out the creator collaborators, and then so there's a whole process there.
And
But then TikTok may not even be here in 3 months. Like it's just a lot. And it's a learning process, and I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I like learning about things.
yeah.
So I know more than I did going the first time around.
And has building out this graphic novel and understanding the kind of marketing and business behind it, like, is this completely taken over your life? Are you still writing for
No,
TV?
no, yeah, I'm still writing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's not full time at this time,
Mhm.
but it might be. Like it depends on how things take off. Like if it does take off in a way that I'd like to, then it might be Revenant Studios. I'm not going to be Marvel or DC. I want to be maybe 8, 12 titles, but go deep in each title.
Mhm.
So that would be a goal for me.
Yeah, because, I mean, you might be at a situation where you publish chapter 4 of Grid Wars, and then all of a sudden, like, someone's asking you to put together, like, a script for the first 3 chapters and
Right,
turn it into, like, 90 minutes or something.
right.
Yeah.
That totally could happen.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna, let's see where this thing goes.
That's wild, though, that you've kind of created this whole universe, and now it's yours to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, I know it's a horrible punishment, but it's also really fun.
Yeah, because the buck does stop with you, and if something doesn't happen, it's yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm managing the entire thing. Yeah. So
That's a lot of heavy weight.
it's a lot of heavy weight. If you want the freedom, you also have to take on the responsibility.
Mhm.
So I've taken on the responsibility of it. But so far it's been good, and I don't have any complaints on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No haters for trying to be an entrepreneur and do something exciting?
No.
Yeah.
No, because there's a lot of people that are they're trying to figure out the same thing.
Mhm.
They're all like there's a great community of people and they're very supportive. I did a podcast called World at War Comics, and he's phenomenal. This guy's built up, it's all about comic books and comic book creators and things like that. So there's like people really want to discover. It's a warm audience.
Mhm.
It's not, competitive and bitter with each other. It's a very supportive audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good that you found a community of people who like each other.
Yeah. Never happens.
Yeah, graphic novels, not politics.
No, doesn't happen in LA,
No.
so no.
Well, that's amazing. So you've got 8 of these chapters. I mean, now are you, do you have other worlds that you're thinking about creating alongside this? Like, what's the
Yeah.
bandwidth looking like? Is it like, okay, I'm gonna finish all 8 Grid Wars and then start something fresh, or
I don't know yet. That's a good question. So the Grid Wars actually has two sort of spin-offs from it. So we're gonna find out more about Kodiak as it goes on. And not everything is the way it seems. So Kodiak would be the second series after this. And then the third series is what Takashi is really building, what he's been building this whole time,
beyond just the wall?
beyond just a wall. So that could last me, I don't even know how long,
Mhm.
you know. But I do have other, like I have a horror series that I want to do. So, I want to be able to branch off, but right now I've got my hands full, and I can't imagine starting anything just brand new in the comic book world other than putting my feet in front of each other and walking.
Yeah, because your head's gotta be so deep in Grid Wars that you can't even fathom going outside of that
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
It's too much. Yeah.
People don't understand, like, how much writers get sucked into the world that they're building and
Yeah.
how, like, impossible it is to go outside of it
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. And by the way, I've tried AI. It's hard. It sometimes gives you good ideas on what to think about, but like I try to do some test runs on it, and it never works the way you want it to work.
For the writing or for the graphics?
For the writing,
Yeah.
I haven't really tried it for the graphics. I mean, I have on joking around things, but like not any, like I would never. Brow is like AI proof,
Mhm.
so I don't even bother with AI for this. Um,
It's interesting, just sorry to interrupt, like, I was listening the other day to, Peter Thiel, who's one of the,
yeah,
PayPal mafia guys who started PayPal with Elon and
yeah,
the rest of them, and he's a pretty controversial figure, but he said something really
okay,
interesting about AI the other day. He said, like, he was saying AI is gonna put, massive value on people who can write and tell stories versus people who have mathematical skills, because he's like, AI is gonna completely, remove the need to memorize formulas and understand mathematics because people can just look it up and find the answers quickly. But he was like, artists and storytelling and stuff like that, and people who can communicate, like, AI will take much, much longer to replicate those actions than
it does.
math and science.
It does, it
Yeah.
does. I've tried, like, it never it can't seem to get what you're wanting it to get to, and because it doesn't know you and your rhythms, particularly with, like, treatments, so when we tried like, experimenting with it, for, treatments for pitches,
Mhm.
and it can't match the way that we pitch,
Mhm.
right? At least I haven't been able to see that. So, a pitch is kind of like you want to have it be very conversational, and it sort of can't. It sounds like bad dialogue, so it's just not there yet, and it may not ever get there. It just may not. Like you still have to churn the butter with the hand, in order to get it done.
That's good for us creators.
It is good for us creators.
We got a little longer.
Get a little longer,
Yeah.
just a few days.
Yeah. But I think all the computer scientists and mathematicians out there are gonna be struggling maybe.
They might be,
Yeah.
or I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's a whole different world. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a podcast a couple of months ago with a man named Frank, and he was a animator at Disney.
Oh, wow.
But he was an actor, and then he went into animation, and then now he's acting again. So he's had this like wonderful career for himself. And he was just telling me like how involved being an animator was before computers.
Yeah.
And then because he was kind of part of that shift where he was drawing and then he had to learn how to use a mouse.
Right.
And he talked to me like at length for hours really about that change in the way you create your art. And I just can't imagine like maybe in 5 years from now there's no Disney animators and everyone's just typing in stuff into an AI prompt and it's all just coming out.
I hope not.
But it's like and then it's like one 22-year-old intern who's doing entire animated Disney movies instead of a studio of 400 animators.
I mean, I will tell you this, you know, working the studio system, one of your first rung is reading scripts. Claude, the AI tool, it is very good, and I wonder how that's gonna have effect upon people, who have to read. So maybe what they might do is, like, actually, like, an assistant may just dump everything into Claude and then only read the stuff that Claude says, "Yeah, you should read."
That's the future.
I think so.
That's the way major companies are using AI now to do human resources to review resumes, and the resume app or AI app that they're using to assess who's a good candidate based on how good their resume is,
Yeah.
like just dismisses all the ones that the app says are not good, and then only gives you the ones that are good, and then that's the ones like a human sees.
Right.
And now people are just starting to try to, like, write resumes that the AI likes, which is fucked.
It's bananas. Yeah. It's just at some point, it just makes you go, "What are we doing, and why are we doing it this way?" You know?
I think we're, like as humans, I think we're, like, 5 years away from a lot of us having to trick AI
Yeah.
to get ahead in the pile of job applicants or resumes or whatever, just so that we can work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, your goal when you're crafting a resume is to crack the AI.
yeah. Instead of actually get a job or put down on paper what accurately describes your work and educational
Right.
and hobby history.
It's bananas, man.
Yeah.
It's really I don't know, I don't know where we're going, but, when I see things like the Waymo car, I'm like, A, it looks weird, but why do we really need it? Do we really need self-driving cars? Is it something we absolutely have to have? Or are you just trying to cut out, you're just trying to maximize profit to the point where, a lot of people are out of work. And I don't, because it doesn't make me feel safer to get in a self-driving car. Like, that was one of the big pitches, which is, well, now you're not gonna have, drunk driving and all that kinda stuff. Okay, that's cool. I get that, but I'd rather get in an Uber even with all the, possibilities than have this Waymo and, keep a workforce. Like, it's not at some point, we're just eating our own.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like, yeah, like the way it was explained to me, and I've always used this as an example, moving forward is like 35 years ago, putting your credit card information into the internet was
It's
terrifying.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
And now we've got like 100 apps on our phone that have our credit card data.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that's the process of comfort with regards to technology. That's the curve that we're all going to be on, and it's just going to shorten with every kind of advancement. And the car thing is interesting because like the way it's been described to me, especially with Tesla, is like you buy a Tesla and then it drives you to work, and you can be working in the back or sitting in the passenger seat with your laptop open or checking your phone or whatever. And then when you get to work, instead of parking your car goes out and becomes an autonomous taxi all day, making you money. And then when you're ready to go home, your car comes back, picks you up, and drives you home. So instead of parking your car and having it sit and having that wasted asset, now your car is actually earning an extra income for you during the daytime.
Which isn't so bad. It's it's I thi when you describe it like that, I'm like, yeah, I get that. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, because
Go
imagine,
back on my comment earlier.
but it's interesting because like at the end of the day, like like creating these autonomous vehicles or creating autonomy in the economy, it's supposed to free us all up for more time so that we can either make more money doing our job
Right.
or to have more leisure time or something like that. And there's these people out there. I don't know where like Elon and Sam Altman and stuff like this. I don't know where they land on this issue, but it's pretty obvious that like if AI keeps going the way it is, like 90% of the United States is going to be unemployed within like 10 or 20 years. And then it's like, and then that's when the serious conversation is like, when do we have like a universal income for us all just to like
Right.
keep our heads above water and to do, fun things with our leisure time
Right.
because maybe we only have to work 1 hour a day because of all the AI, components that we can use to do our job faster.
Right. Oh man, it's so crazy.
That's your next graphic novel.
My next graphic novel. No, but you know, what was I reading that AI? Who was saying this? That basically it can help with creating cancer medication specifically tailored to you.
Mhm.
That to me is the best use of AI,
Mhm.
and even other stuff that can be done, like I love the stuff that can be done in terms of, well, with farming, and it could basically read how much water should be allocated over here versus just sprinkling. Like to me, that's so cool. When it becomes a portion of replacing the workforce completely, uh, that to me starts to become like, yeah, we're gonna be in a lot of trouble. You know?
But imagine there's some way or some system. So like take a doctor, right?
Yeah.
So doctors are valued in society and respected, and they make decent money, good money, and they have to go to school for a really long time, right? So imagine now you have like AI doctors that are completely plugged into everything that has ever been written about medicine. So you're taking a lot of human error out of the game, right? But then imagine like you have these AI doctors and but they're awake 24/7, like, they don't have to take a 12-hour shift off and rest, right? So imagine you're just furloughing doctors at their current salaries, in perpetuity,
Oh my
and
god.
then just replacing them with AI doctors that work 24/7,
Right.
never get tired, and then no more. And if we can find a way to like make sure that the patients aren't getting any less good care or anything like that, then you basically furloughed a generation of doctors at their current salaries and replace them with AI. And then after 30, 40 years, they'll all be gone and then there's no more doctors. Like it's just the real question isn't like what are the doctors going to do? It's like what are the universities going to do that have medical programs? I think about this shit a lot.
That was good. That's great. That was good.
Yeah.
That was some good shit. That was really good. No, that's amazing. Like that's huge.
Mhm,
It affects everything.
mhm.
And I don't know, but then I guess the question is, if there are no more doctors doing scientific research, are they building on the knowledge base, or do the AI doctors, are they able to create new knowledge based off of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like is like if the AIs aren't just repeating what's already out there, if they're actually learning and then
Right.
adding to the database, like that's going to be the real thing. It's like, "Ooh, I've seen something new today that is not in the database." Like I
Right.
must catalog it and make sure all the other AIs that are plugged into this version of the system are all have this new information. Or there, it's like it's true. If there's no human doctors, how do we continue to advance the research?
And part of it is, and maybe this is the sad part, is that you do have to have some problems in order to get solutions out of this. So they do test groups and they go, okay, well, that didn't work over here,
Mhm.
and now we know it works. But obviously for the people it didn't work, that's not good. So maybe AI will help with that, and then speed up that sort of, to find out what works better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Beyond my pay grade.
And then when are us human character or consumers going to not need a human touch to feel
Right.
like we've had service well delivered?
Yeah.
Like if it's just a robot or an AI, are we going to feel cheapened by the experience as customers,
Right.
or are we going to enjoy it even more than a human being? Because sometimes human beings can be a little nasty.
Sometimes human beings can be a little nasty. I mean, one of the big fears when, like last year for the Writers Guild, was AI, and because basically there were writers who were getting producers were experimenting with it, and they'd call up a writer and be like, "Yeah, I did this idea with the AI. It's kind of garbage. Will you come in and rewrite it?"
Mhm.
You know, and the guild fought that because the rewrite fee is less, obviously, than the like to come up with something. Here's an idea, but here will you do the first draft? That's where a lot of the money is.
Mhm.
So we fought over that, but one of the fears I think was that eventually we'll be able to create each person will be able to create their own movie, using, Debbie Scarlett Johansson, put her in a movie about, whatever, whatever, and go. And then it creates it. And then there you are. That's your Netflix entertainment for the night.
Mhm.
You know? And if that's the case, if that ends up happening, which it doesn't sound like it is now, then anybody has all of this at their fingertips, which is terrific in some ways, but also, what's the value of art or anything at that point? It's nothing,
Yeah.
you know?
It's creepy. Like, what if, like, like like, so imagine there's a kid born today in 2025, and by the time he's 4 or 5, he's got a phone in his hand or an iPad in his hand, and then by 15, he's completely mastered storytelling with the assistance of AI, and by 20, he or she puts out their first feature film, and it's just them in a basement with nothing else,
Right.
and it could be a hit.
And it could be it.
It could win an Oscar.
It could win an Oscar. So in some ways that's kind of cool, but in other ways it's sort of like, well, you know, what does that do for actually storytellers? But to your point earlier with Peter Thiel, maybe there's a place for us.
Well, Sam Altman, he had an interesting thing. So he was on Rogan a couple months ago, and people, I don't know, I've talked to a few people that say like Sam Altman privately is a bit of a doomsday like sayer, but then in public he always like, oh, it's going to be okay. But I don't know him, so I'll reserve that to other people.
That's
But
great.
I think a lot of tech people are like, oh, it's going to be fine, and then behind the scenes when they're drinking single malted cigars, they're like, it's not going to be good at all.
We're creating our own downfall. Yeah.
But he was saying like, there's 8 billion people that share the economy in the world, and he's like, there's the GDP that has to go across 8 billion people is pretty significant. So if we can find a way for AI to reduce the amount of jobs that people need, then they can still maybe claim a percentage of that GDP for themselves. And then I think, well, that's pretty fucking, the grass is always greener. Like, then it's like, well, how much percentage of one unit of that 8 billion does, someone in Beverly Hills get versus someone in India or Pakistan or Indonesia or whatever. So, however that gets distributed will be so political and so fucked up.
I don't know where that's going. I can't see good things on that front.
No,
When you pitch that to me, it just sounds like it ain't gonna work out well, right?
no.
Yeah. So let's hope for that not to happen. Um, I just part of it is just like, okay, I wish they'd spend more time on fixing things that need like actual problems. But having said that, what you did say about like you buy a Tesla and then you go to work and then the Tesla goes out and then makes you money. I mean, that's helpful to people. That could be very helpful to people. So on the one hand, it is killing a job because the driver is no longer there.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, it is making you money so I don't know where it nets out. Like, is it positive or is it negative? I can't figure it out.
Or what if you just quit your fucking job and buy 10 Teslas and sit at home and you
Right.
got 10 cars all doing work for you all day?
Right.
Yeah.
But then what does that do to your self-esteem as, like, am I actually doing, I was just in Hawaii.
As long as the money comes in, does anyone really give a fuck?
Well, I was in Hawaii like last month and I was like, every time that happens, I haven't been there in a long time, but when I do go there, I'm always like, I may just pack it in and then move out here because it's so awesome. And then I realize I'll never accomplish anything because all I'll do is hang out with the chickens on the ground and go to the beach and eat poke. That's for later in life. You know, I have to work. I want to work.
Mhm.
And if AI basically makes it so I don't have to work, you think that's awesome. But will we?
But what if that whole reward system gets turned on there? I'm sorry, we've totally gone off on a tangent here, but I'm loving this.
If yeah,
What if the whole dynamic between work and leisure changes? Because I feel like
yeah,
my idea of hard work came from my father. and my dad was a student athlete, so I was a student athlete, and we learned how to study and go to practice. And then
Yeah.
when we got into the workforce, you work long hours, you work harder than everyone else, and you get promoted, you make more money, and that's the way you be a good citizen or whatever. But what if all that's different? Like, what if the cool people who make all the money in the future just work 1 month a year, and then the next 11 months they spend climbing mountains or surfing in Hawaii, and they're the ones that are respected because they can be so creative and get so much done in 1 month that they don't have to work the rest of the year, whereas working 12 months a year, is no longer fashionable or something that is respected.
It's not a badge of honor.
Right. That whole thing could be flipped on its head.
Yeah. Like what yeah, you're right. Like what if, the idea now in America in particular is okay, like even Elon Musk is like you need to work in, insane hours and you need to like all to the wall and all that stuff. What if it isn't like that? What if it's like you're right, like I get way more done in less amount of time and now how many mountains did I climb? How many whatever, going into Africa and then working on a farm or whatever it is
Mhm.
that you couldn't do before, what if you could do now? And that's the sign of a well-lived life. That's pretty cool.
It is. I mean, what if you could do chapter 2 of Grid Wars
Yeah.
in 30 days and then it was a huge success, but the audience can't take another Grid Wars for another 12 months, so you're
Yeah.
kind of forced to chill out. And then January 2026, you make another Grid Wars, you put it out into the world, everyone's happy, you make lots of money, and then
Yeah.
you go quiet for 11 months again. And actually, like, working too much would actually harm
Yeah.
the audience and the quality of the work or something. Like, I see this whole dynamic being completely flipped upside down.
Yeah, I never thought of that way. That's great.
No.
That's great. Yeah, maybe that actually isn't going to be so bad. You know?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be terrible for a lot of people
Right.
unless that universal income comes quickly and has some kind of price sensitive or inflation sensitive dynamic where people can stay up with the times and don't get left behind. Because the worst thing you want to do is create a universal income where people are disadvantaged by accepting it.
Right.
Like, there will always be people who can probably work and do better than the universal basic income, but if it's there and it's good and it's better than being unemployed or something,
Right.
um,
Right. Right.
then then it's like, well, can you get universal basic income and still work on top of it, or is it a full replacement? Like, there's so many things that gotta have to be figured out.
Oh man, we got a lot of work we got ahead of us, don't we?
I studied politics and political science, so, like, these kinds of questions are fascinating to me.
This is great. This is great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, back to Grid Wars. So
Yeah.
so where are you going with this for the next 6 months? What can we all start to look forward to, and where can people get chapter 1, and what's happening with chapter 2 again?
Yeah. Okay. So chapter one, you can get it on my website at this moment. And then it's in 9 stores in Los Angeles, which are also on the website. So you can see all that there and then you can order it. And definitely take advantage of the welcome 20 discount. First time buyers they get a 20% discount.
Mhm.
So that's that. And then chapter two is now, as I said, is being developed. Script's done, art's being drawn. Kickstarter will probably be up in about 3 months and maybe 2, 3 months. And then after that, we're just keep moving. And then probably it's going to be, I would say, between July and October when you'll have a copy in your hands.
Mhm.
So that's the schedule for that. And then after that, it'll be 3, 4, hopefully we'll do 2 next year in 2026 and then 4 in 2027.
And what's the bottleneck for putting out, like, 2 or 3 or 4 in a year? Is it the writing or is it the artwork? Like, what's the division of labor, just out of curiosity?
It's probably both,
Mm.
I mean, there's only so much, like I have to, the way I write a lot of times is I don't write and then I just think about it. And so I have to be in the headspace to really think things through. But then once it does kick in, I go, oh, okay, I got it.
And now you're ready to write.
And now I'm ready to write. And then you write some garbage and then but out of that garbage, there's like this is working right here. This is working. This is garbage, but we can get to the garbage later. And it's just basically a process of getting from the beginning to the end. And then you go back in and then you strip out. A lot of writers, which I do too, but they write everything, map everything out incomplete. I've done that a number of times and it can work really, really well. But for me, I even when I spend a lot of time on beating things out, I always something about it when you actually get into the script doesn't ever work out the way that you want it to work.
Mhm.
So you end up having to do all this rewriting. So in some ways, it's better to be a little spontaneous and just as long as you know where you're going, you'll be able to get there along the way.
Sounds intense, man.
It is.
I don't know how all writers are not raging alcoholics.
They probably are. They probably are. And and definitely the vodka and whiskey can be a good friend, but
Mm.
you don't want it to be too good of a friend.
No. It's good to loosen up the senses a little bit from time to time.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually one of those writers that cannot like I can't get anything done if I smoke weed or drink. I just say, all right, I'm off. I'm off the clock. But there are writers who smoke weed and it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just not one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. Probably best.
Probably best.
Well, epic, man. So look, I will put the studio at the get Revin Studios. I'll put all that links up. I'll link to the Kickstarter. I'll put it all up when we put this out. And
I love it.
Brian, it's fucking great to see you again.
So good to see you.
Yeah.
We got to do this off the clock, and then we'll grab some drinks or something like that.
Absolutely. Well, now it's kind of a little too early in the day.
A little too early in the day. We'll do it at a night. We'll do it at night.
So now we can go up here. People can see we're in the same room.
Yep.
Great to see you again.
We're all seeing you, my
Yeah.
man. Yeah, it's very good to see you.
Good luck with chapter 2.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
All right. Keep up the good work.